Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out. I know you're all extremely busy, so I do genuinely appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join this webinar. Before we start, I want to ask you something, not so you can answer it right now, but just something to think about over this next 20, 25 minutes or so. All right. You all have something in common. Now, you also have something in common with my clients as well. Prior to them meeting myself and meeting my team, I work with partners, business owners, senior executives all over the Middle East, and what they all have in common is that they know that perhaps they had gaps in their retirement plans, but they just didn't really know how to fix that, and maybe they were focused on the wrong things, focusing in the different areas that maybe they weren't really going to add any value to them. So the question is to you: how many of you feel like you should be better prepared for retirement, but deep down, you know that you also have gaps that probably need to be filled, but you haven't been able to do it yet? That's all I want you to think about, and hopefully, as we go through this webinar, a few ideas will maybe come to mind and encourage you to take certain actions, right? Because the system, and when I say the system, I mean taxes, pensions, currency planning, legacy planning. It's very, very confusing, and I mean, it's confusing even if you live in the UK, let alone when you move offshore, where there's completely different rules. And then if you decide to perhaps move to a different jurisdiction, then that place has different rules, and so on and so on. And I guess this webinar is all about changing that, really. And I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to take control. And it's going to be extremely simple, it's going to be clear, and ultimately it's going to give you confidence in your retirement plan and your long-term objectives. All right. For those that want it, you will be given a QR code towards the end of the webinar, which will allow you to book a call with myself to go through things in a little more world detail. All right. So let's crack on. So just to set the agenda, I'll introduce myself in a bit more detail, although I won't take up too much time on that because I'm really not that interesting, and this isn't really about me, it's about you. I'll then talk to you around the expatriate retirement blueprint, the timeline of retirement as well. We'll then start to talk about how ready people are for retirement and perhaps how far away they are from their objectives, common mistakes and how to avoid them. Most importantly, how to spot them, which is like super important. And then I'll just take you through a couple of different testimonials and next steps. Okay. So, introduction to me. I'm originally from the Isle of Man. Moved to the Middle East in 2014, and I've been here ever since. Now, from a professional standpoint, I've got a number of different qualifications from like UK standards, which can be distributed afterwards if you need to see them. My role within Indigo is the head of technical services. Okay, so I do like a lot of this for our clients, and Indigo as a group, multiple different businesses within the group, but the financial planning business is authorised and licensed by the Securities and Commodities Authority in the UAE, and we're completely independent, which essentially means that we're not going to shoehorn you down one particular path, and that we can offer you what we call whole of market advice. Generally means that we'll go and look at all options, discounts, all but one or two, and then we make appropriate recommendations from there. Okay, so I love this slide, and it is important that we show it. This is all about the different stages of financial planning. All right. So the first one is you define and establish the relationship with myself and whoever is on the end of this webinar. We then gather all your information. This will be like what you have, what comes in, what comes out, where you want to be compared to where you are now. And we then take all of that information away, analyze, evaluate, and then we move to step 4, which is like presenting recommendations. And then from there, we go to the implementation phase. And then after that, it's just a case of monitoring and making sure that everything's on track and making sure that you're happy, which is obviously the most important thing. So that's the formalities out of the way. That'll keep compliance happy. So the expat retirement blueprint, what is it? What does it look like? Now, when people think about retirement, they're like, yeah, I'm going to retire on a beach and that's pretty much going to be me. But it's much more difficult than that, and it's not as straightforward as that. I wish it was, although saying that, I'd be out of work if it was as easy as that. So when we talk about like the vision of retirement, that comes down to like, where are you going to retire? How old are you going to be? How far away from that life stage are you at the moment? And have you thought that through? Is it realistic? And I'll give you a real life case study later on about realistic timelines and potentially what it means for you. So if you've got the where and the when boxed off and you're happy with that, it's then about how are you going to achieve that goal? All right, and that feeds nicely into the next part, which is your assets. So this will be like your pensions. So how much tax you're going to pay on your pension, your income, how you're going to take the income, any succession planning that you want to achieve, and your investment choice. Okay, the pensions is such a vast subject. It needs an awful lot of attention. Then have your existing savings. So are your savings rates still competitive? Are they losing real value against inflation? I.e., are you keeping too much in cash and not investing enough? Your investments, is it in line with your risk appetite? So again, I mean, since 2018, 2017, cryptocurrency has been like getting more and more popular. Everybody wants to hold and invest into cryptocurrency, but actually very few people actually match the attitude to risk and the capacity for loss as well. So we make sure that you're invested in the right places, not overexposed. Make sure things are structured in the right way, and make sure that you're not overpaying on fees as well. Ultimately, making sure that your money is working as hard as it should be. All right. When we talk about options, what do we mean here? This is about how you take the money back. This is how you draw down your pension. Okay, and that'll be like drawdown options vary with each individual pension provider. Obviously, you have your state pension, which is a nice pot of money, and you can backdate your national insurance contributions as well. And then with pension transfers, that is essentially a consolidation exercise, which I'll take you through later on as well. And then we have efficiency, like making sure money's held in the right place, and it's held in the right way as well. We make sure that you don't overpay on tax, i.e. making sure you don't pay tax twice with regards to pension income, and then making sure that the money's in the right place, in the right location. All right, we make sure that you take money from the right place. That'll be like, I don't know, a general investment account, a savings part, a pension. It depends really, but we make sure that we take it from the right places first, which is like super important as well. And this is really where working with a financial planner will really add value to your future self, I guess. And then we're not even at the retirement stage yet. All right, so now we start to look at your future and what does the ideal retirement look like for you? Where is that going to be? Can you take your income in the right currency? Now, a lot of UK pension providers, you can only take your pension income in pounds. If you retire in Portugal, that's going to cause you a headache every month. We help with that, okay? And again, I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. And then finally, the last piece of the puzzle is about legacy planning. All right. So what I mean by that is, do you want to spend all of your money, or do you want to leave some of it behind? And we help you through that as well. So this visual here, this chart here, represents the cost of not acting. All right, because you're all here today because you're interested in hearing more about how you can best optimize your retirement. So this chart shows you exactly that. If you have pension benefits in the UK, then chances are you have limited investment choice, probably have a rigid income structure as well, so like how you can take the money, and if you don't work with a professional, you might end up overpaying on tax and just giving you a headache that could have been avoided if you worked with a professional. So you'll see here that the amber coloured line on this graph chose not to work with a professional. So both clients started off with 100 grand each. One took the advice, okay, and they paid for the advice. The other didn't want to pay for the advice and thought they could do it themselves. All right, the line, the orange line, didn't transfer and didn't look to optimize their retirement, and it ended up costing them, not by way of paying for the financial advice or anything like that, but it lost them or it cost them, sorry, in lost investment growth, overpayment of taxes, and not being able to take money in the right way. And that mistake, simply by not acting at all, cost this client 140 grand. And this is real as well for one of the other clients in the office. All right. So whilst people think that they can do it themselves because everything's on YouTube and everything like that now, it's not actually the case. And working with a professional will only benefit you later on down the line. All right. We make sure that you're invested in the right markets, you take the income in the right way, you don't overpay in tax, and we guide you through your retirement journey, which is like incredibly important. Okay. If this sounds like you, then again, there'll be a QR code at the end of this webinar where you can book in the call and we can discuss it as to how it works for you. All right. So now when we start to look at the retirement timeline, it's very, very interesting because even though like we're starting right at the start here, pension and retirement plan, this is where we are today, where I start to understand your ambitions, your goals, your objectives, making sure that you're on track, recommending any changes that need to be made or perhaps any gaps that need to be filled. All right. And then after that, you then go into the next phase, which is the career wind down phase. And that will be like consultancy roles, semi-retired, maybe acting in like a non-exec role for various different companies. And then after that, you wind down and your working life is done as you know it. So what happens next? Well, what happens next is the go-go years. And this is generally the most active part of your retirement. It's where the vast majority of like once in a lifetime travel, expensive purchases, that's generally when all of this really happens. The go-go years are where you really do spend money. And we find that most retirees spend about 40% of their retirement pot, or they certainly allocate 40% of their retirement pots for the go-go years, which is fair enough because you've been working for 40 odd years and you want to make sure that you do everything and tick everything off the bucket list. So then what happens next? Well, then you move into the slow go years, much more relaxed, not as much traveling. You tend to focus on like your family and friends, see them more often. You're winding down and things are very comfortable, but not as busy as they once were. Then you have the no-go years, which is essentially when you're maybe not as independent as you once were. Like long-term care planning, change the home to make sure that it's suitable for you and your spouse, perhaps. And then we start to look at like legacy and succession planning. Okay. So then when we talk about retirement and readiness, now this is this will resonate with a lot of you, I'm sure. So Fiona, real client, she had about 200 grand of pensions in the UK. Also married with her husband in Abu Dhabi, and she had a good pension pot, but she wasn't contributing to it. So it was just sat there like it was earning a little bit of growth, but maybe not as much as it should have been. Her and her husband, both had about 20 years left of their working life, and they wanted, not needed, but they wanted about 45 grand a year in income, and that will allow them to do whatever they want to do in retirement. That'll pay for all of their trips, that'll pay for their lifestyle, discretionary spend, and everything else. Now, the problem that Fiona and her husband faced is that based on their current circumstances and their current position, they were going to have a shortfall of just over £640,000. It's quite a big shortfall, especially when you enter the drawdown phase, which essentially meant that they would run out of money within, just after 10 years. Okay, not a good outcome at all. So then we met with Fiona and her husband, and we were able to implement some really, really good advice for this couple. All right, they're actually going to end up with more money than they thought in retirement, because we set them up with like a sensible retirement strategy. They're going to enjoy more, spend more, experience more in retirement. We've significantly improved their investment selection, and we've made sure that the funds can be taken in a tax efficient manner and also in the right currency. Okay, now we do this work with clients all the time, and if you want to know what your retirement readiness is, then of course we can help with that, and we can really help you get on track. So I've spoken about like pension transfers and how they work a few times over this webinar. So I mean, when we're looking at recommending pension transfers for clients, there's a number of different aspects that we really have to think about. So we look at when you can access the money, how you can take the money, your investment options, okay, how you're going to be taxed, what death benefits are available, and what currency the income can be taken in. So generally, if you have what we call an international SIP, which is essentially it's a pension plan for expatriates, all licensed and regulated by the FCA in the UK. We look at when you can take the money, when you can start to benefit from that, how you can take it, which essentially means can you access the benefits flexibly, or are you going to be stuck with like a rigid income structure? And then we look at how does that impact your tax situation as well, and anything that you want to leave behind for your family. And obviously, if you are moving to a different country that's not the UK, we want to make sure that you can take that money as efficiently as possible in the right currency as well. So Martin, 52 years old, expat in Abu Dhabi. He had a couple of different defined contribution pensions that were left in the UK, about 270 grand, give or take. What we did for Martin, I mean, Martin was really worried about, was it going to be enough for him? He had other pots of money as well, because he's been offshore for a while. But he wanted to make sure that he was going to be okay in retirement. All right, he was taxing the fees that he was paying, and maybe not being able to take the income in like a different currency, just in case he retired to somewhere else in Europe. So what were we able to do for Martin? Well, we consolidated all of the pensions. We brought them all together, and we were able to reduce the fees from what he was paying previously, and we were able to build him a bespoke investment portfolio that worked for Martin. The reason why I say that is that generally your employer pension schemes in the UK generally have 4 to maybe 7, generally 6 investment choices. What we did, and because of the partners that we work with, we have access to over 4,000 different types of assets that make sure that we can get your money working harder for you. So when I say we can create you a bespoke portfolio, we really can, and you will see benefits of that as well. So now, what this means for Martin, when we compared the forward-looking analysis, which essentially shows where he is right now compared to where he's going to be, we were able to see that actually Martin's going to be able to retire 6 years earlier. So previously, Martin was under the impression that he was going to be working up until his 66th birthday. But now with what we've been able to do for him, he can retire at 60, and he knows that he's not going to run out of money, which is, again, like, this is where you would start to see the benefits of sitting down with myself and my team. So, common mistakes and how to avoid them. Again, super important. And these are the main ones, okay? You've got inefficiency and rigid income, all right? And needlessly paying or overpaying on tax. You've got lack of inflation proofing, which is essentially like having too much in cash, not getting your money working harder for you. You have your investment choices as well. So lifestyling funds are quite a buzzword, especially with pension schemes. They sound great, they do, but they aren't for everybody, okay? 9 times out of 10, you're going to benefit from having a bespoke portfolio that's been put together for you. So I'd urge you to really, really think about that. And then you have like ignoring exchange rates. So again, UK pension schemes or employer pensions can generally only pay income in pound sterling. That's no good if you retire in Spain or Portugal. The amount that you receive every month is going to be different. Again, we can help you with that, and we can help take away that problem. Another point would be like not taking advantage of tax agreements with country A and the UK. All right, and again, that's something that we can help with, that we do day in, day out as well. So then, when we start to think about like questions that I get asked quite often, I've whittled this down to the main 4 really. So, what happens if I move? What happens if I left the UAE or I left Saudi or Bahrain tomorrow and I move back to England or Scotland or France, Spain, Portugal, wherever? Nothing. The pension plans, the international pension plans that are all, like I said, all authorised and licensed by the FCA in the UK, they're built for expatriates. So they are completely portable. What I would say is that how you draw income will be treated differently, but that's something that we would cross that bridge at that time. And again, go back to what we said before, we'd make sure that things are taken as efficiently as possible. I get asked all the time, is transferring risky? And that it's very subjective, because to some people it is, to some people it isn't. And I think it really comes down to what you want to achieve, I guess. So is a pension transfer risky? It's more down to the investment risk and the counterparty risk, i.e. the likelihood of a company failing. That being said, there is something very specific with pension transfers, which is mainly it's only for defined benefit schemes, like your final salary schemes, which aren't that popular anymore for a number of reasons. But essentially with that, so I had a client back end of last year who has a defined benefit scheme, and I actually advised her, said, listen, I don't think you should look at transferring this at the moment. The interest rates are too high, which means that you're not getting a fair value for your defined benefit pension. We did proceed with the transfer of benefits for the just normal defined contribution or money purchase pension. But that's what it comes down to. Now, again, when it comes to the risk that's involved, we take a very sensible approach to the investment allocation and the providers that we work with, like I said, they're all authorised and licensed by the FCA in the UK as well. So you're not going to have a pension and investment provider in Timbuktu where you don't really know what's going on. Okay, it's a very, very clean and transparent way of doing business. And I think I've covered this off here about leaving my pension where it is. Of course you can. There's no obligation to move whatsoever. We just give you the option to be able to do that. And if you are going to be better off leaving your pension where it is, I'll be the first to tell you that you don't need to take any action, and then we can go our separate ways. There's no issues there whatsoever. And then I get asked this all the time: how do I know if I'm on track? Well, we can help you, and we could tell you very, very quickly if you're on track or not. We do cash flow modeling with every single one of our clients, which essentially demonstrates, right, this is what you can do and when. And if there is red, which is generally bad, if there's red on the modeling, then we reverse engineer it and figure out what we need to do to make sure that you don't run out of money and to make sure that you can achieve everything that you want to achieve when you do eventually retire. So listen, today, like, you've seen the challenges that expats face. Pensions are like super confusing, and it's such a vast subject, and people do need help with pension planning. Tax changes can be unpredictable and can happen at a drop of a hat. We've seen it last year with what happened in the UK, and the risk of running out of money is very, very real. And you need a seasoned professional, to help make sure that you stay on track. And listen, a lot of our clients that attend these webinars, they walk away feeling inspired and empowered, but they don't really know what to do. So if you're feeling like that, or you want to know a little bit more, then just scan this QR code here, and we can book in a call and run through things in much more detail. And that call will be completely tailored to yourself. We'll go over what's at the start, what comes in, what goes out, what you have, where you are, and where you want to be. It takes 30 seconds to book that. Now, testimonials. So two on the two on the screen here, which I have chosen these two because they are like super important. So Chris and Jane, expat couple in Dubai, they were missold like these old rigid savings policies previously, and I helped them get out of that and put that into a lower cost platform. They were also misled on insurance, and then Chris was diagnosed with a serious illness. He was then introduced to me. Prior to being introduced, he had tried to make a claim to the insurance policy to get his payout. They said no. Long story short, I battled with them for a good couple of months, and we actually got the money in the end. And I must say that was hands down one of the most proudest moments of my career. It really was. I was so chuffed, and so were they. So then we have Mike as well, who, no fault of his own, he was going to get hit with like £100,000 tax bill. He was then introduced to me. I was able to negotiate that from £100,000 all the way down to zero. And again, like, I was very, very proud of what I did for him. So the reason why I've shown you these is because this all comes down to, who do you want in your corner? Do you want somebody that is just going to see you when the markets are doing well, or when things go south and things deviate from the plan? Do you want somebody that's going to be fighting your corner for you at any given stage for your financial life? And I think that is incredibly important, because you'll probably speak to other financial planners, of course you will, but I can guarantee you that not every single financial planner will do what I've done here for Chris, Jane and Mike. So I urge you to take that into consideration. So listen, this is all for today. What I would say is that if you've got one piece of information that's made you think differently about your retirement, don't let it swindle away. Scan this QR code, book in that meeting, take action, scan it now, and then we can go through your retirement blueprint in much more detail and make sure that you are on track. So listen, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to speaking with many of you very, very soon. Okay, thank you very much, and have a good day.